Evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day in the sunshine. We had a good bank holiday. We're going to chat with Payman Langroudi this evening. We're going to chat about some whitening. I'm just going to add him in now. And I want to point out from the start, this is not in any way sponsored by Enlighten or mini smile makeovers or anything like that. But thought he'd be the man to get on to chat through this. And yeah, let's get him in. Send that in. There he is, straight in like that. How you doing?
Can you hear me okay?
I've got you. You got me all right? Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's a little bit on the slow side. I'm sure I'll wake up. Can you hear me all right? How was your trip down from
Yeah.
Peterborough? You make it back? So it was all good up there, yeah? And thanks for coming on, having a chat. I feel like I
Switch
only
out
saw you
the
the other day.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it might help. Give that a go.
Okay, but
Should we close it up and reopen it? How's that? That better?
that's better.
There
That's
we
better.
go. There we go. See, I feel like I
That's
only saw you the other day.
It was. Since that time though, I woke up with a it's like a shoulder, like a stuck shoulder. You know, it was like the weirdest time on the train. Just like, but I'm okay.
Right, cheers for coming on, and
My pleasure.
especially on such a busy day as you've gone up north to one of your centres. So we're
Yeah.
going to chat some whitening. Do you want to just give a little intro about yourself, and for anyone who lives under a rock and doesn't know who you are?
I'm Payman. I'm one of the founders of Enlighten. So we make a teeth whitening system, and we also run a composite course called Mini Smile Makeover with Dipesh Palmer. And I also have a podcast called Dental Leaders Podcast with Brad. Thank you.
And you
Those are
had
my three things at the
some
moment.
good people on the podcast, I know, don't you?
The,
So.
the best.
But so let's just jump straight into some whitening stuff. I think most of the questions that I had back were, and I guess this is whitening in general, but obviously you're going to talk from an enlightened perspective. But is there anything in particular that you should look at when you look at a patient that wants whitening to think this is a home run, this is a tricky one? Are there, things that you're always worried about? Are there things that will be fine? Any ideas?
Yeah. So you've got your. I kind of try and split it up into the clinical parameters that are in front of you, and then kind of what you're going to do about those clinical parameters that are in front of you. From the simple cases and difficult cases perspective, we looked at 3,000 enlightened failure cases. I wish we'd started doing that earlier, because there's been more than 3,000 overall. But we started around 8, 9 years ago. Every time there was a failure, logging it and what was the cause of the failure as far as we were concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And the vast majority, so over 3/4, were bruxism related. So,
Yeah.
and the way we know that is by with those patients switching to daytime bleaching and then suddenly getting a brilliant result. It's certainly the thing that we've been most sort of working on over the last 3, 4 years, trying to make it somehow better. And we have actually found ways of doing it, but there is a problem with, one way of sort of helping with bruxism is to use a sort of a more rigid tray, something a bit more like a Vivera,
Mm-hmm.
helps with bruxism. But the reason why Vivera fits is because it's an aligned arch. If it was a malaligned arch, a crowded arch, Vivera would have a lot of trouble fitting, with the undercuts and the nooks and crannies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, we're constantly developing the system, and we're about to launch another version of it. But I can't tell you exactly when that'll be. But no, because I can't tell myself. I don't know
Yeah.
the answer to the question. I'll tell you if I knew. Uh, but one thing that we're looking at is in the booking stage, to ask the question, do you think the patient's a bruxist?
Hmm.
And then if that's the case, producing a different tray. And it would be the first time we've done something like that. And
Yeah.
anytime you make a big change like that, the market doesn't like it. So, it's one of those.
I think, I mean, we're going to cover that kind of stuff later on, I think, when we talk about impressions, being Impression Club. But that it does go along with that thing. Is it's whitening? It's you slap in some alginate and get some trays made. But we'll get there. But that's a question I was going to ask you later. But let's cover it now. So, do you have multiple types of trays, and do you look at it, or are you
So
looking at doing that?
that's the thing, yeah. So for now, you ask for an Enlighten tray, it's the same tray
Hmm.
every time. Of course, the technician has to make a whole lot of decisions on every tray, but we're looking at that. We're looking at producing a different tray for a different situation.
Hmm.
Like I say, the market doesn't like it when you make changes, and we've made a few big changes. We're on the third version of the evolution system, and every time we've brought a new version out, people have complained, and some people have complained, and you get used to what you do, right?
Hmm.
But because bruxism's by a long way the biggest issue, it's worth investigating. Now, as I say, whether we'll actually do it or not, I don't know yet. I
Mm.
don't know yet.
But if it's as simple as saying daytime bleaching for your bruxists,
Yeah,
and I know you want that all-encompassing magic product that's going to do everything for
yeah,
everyone. The way, because some people want to do it at night, some people don't want to do it for 2 or 3 hours in the day. But I
yeah.
think it's a really valid point that you don't. I listened to your podcast again with Jazz when you went on his the other day, and you talked at the end about university, and you don't learn any of that. You don't think, oh, do they Brooks? And obviously, it makes complete sense if it's flexing all over the place, the bleach is going to leak out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just something that you just
What
don't
it
think
is,
about.
I'm a bit stuck on nighttime bleaching, because nighttime bleaching you get less saliva,
Mm.
being produced, and so for me, if I could find a tray, make a tray that didn't pump out the gel overnight, that would be the golden solution.
Hmm.
As I say, when you're doing thousands of cases a week, which is where we're at now, the, if even if it's a 3% failure or a 3% mistake, that's a lot of unhappy people.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
so you have to try and figure all of that into every move you make.
Hmm.
I'll tell you one thing. Now that we've got our own lab, I know a lot of your audience are technicians. My respect for lab techs and for lab owners has gone through the roof, because it's a difficult thing, a lab. Now I don't know what it's like having a real lab, and we've got one product, bleaching tray, and I'm sure your technician audience is going to sort of think, what's he talking about? It's the easiest thing in the world to make. But finding the right people, training them correctly, and the relentlessness of it, you have a really big day. You can't predict what's going to come in today. You have a
Hmm. Hmm.
really big day, all hands on deck. And then the next day, the post comes in, and it's another whole lot of work, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, people have to work overtime without much notice. Um, it's difficult. It's a difficult business being in lab. So yeah, my hats off.
That's good. You know your audience. You know how to appease them. Uh, no, I think. So when did you start the lab? When did you guys get your
so
own? And all
so
that lab
only
does is enlighten trays.
Yeah, so only just over a year now that we've had it in house.
Hmm.
So we were great believers in outsourcing um, this, and by the way, it's a lot less headache to outsource. But it's been brilliant having it in. I mean, the improvements we've made in this 1 year have been huge. And, when you're there talking to the technicians, seeing the work come in, it really, really does make a big difference.
We got a technician already saying, "I like what you're saying, Payments." That's good.
How do
So
you know he's a technician? Oh, you know him.
yeah, oh, I know them already. That's Mike's technician.
Okay.
No, perfect. So any other things that looking at? Obviously, shape of teeth, enamel thickness, dark spots. It's all about cervical, right? Because again, we talked about leaking saliva, either saliva coming in, diluting, or bleach getting out.
Yeah. So
Cervical areas.
let's go through it. The cervical area is definitely the hardest area. The reason for that isn't only that that's where the saliva comes in and the gel escapes, but that's also where the thinnest enamel is.
Hmm.
And thin enamel is the second biggest problem with whitening. So when you look at your patient, for me, the first question you want to ask is this patient bruxes? By far the most important question. The second question, is there very thin enamel anywhere? And I'm not talking about sort of measuring it,
Yeah.
but is there enamel so thin that you can clearly see through it and you can just see the dentine anatomy showing through? Because that area is going to be the hardest area to bleach. So those two are the key questions,
And
and
if
then it
and
would
if
be
they're a bruxist, they've probably got some thin enamel somewhere as well. So
exactly. So you've got that combination, and just throw in, the same patient been bruxing all her life, has got thinner enamel, and is over 60 as
hmm
well.
hmm
And now you've got the perfect storm, outside of tetracycline, and we'll leave tetracycline for another discussion. Outside of tetracycline, you've got the perfect storm. And there's a lot of patients out there who've been bruxing for years and are over 60.
hmm
And as a dentist, you need to recognize that that's a much, much more difficult case. With Enlighten, it will take twice as long to
hmm
get to the same result. If you're lucky, I mean, if you've got very, 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 very thin enamel, that area is pretty much not going to bleach because exposed dentine doesn't bleach.
hmm hmm So that basically, and then that's the kind of thing where you've got to be seeing, as you say, in your assessments and saying it beforehand. I mean, I said to you on Sunday when we recorded, I think I don't remember much of what I said, but if you say it at the start, it's consent, and if you say it at the end, it's an excuse, right? So you've got
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you've got to clock it early on, and again,
Even
you covered it on protrusive as well. You're sort of saying, well, you don't show it because it's cervical, so you end up making excuses like that. So
yeah, even more than that. I mean, if you say it at the beginning, you're an expert when it goes wrong.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
So I always tell dentists about, white spots. A lot of us miss white spots.
hmm
And, if there's any little white spot, you tell the patient that could go chalky, or you even tell, under promise over deliver, that will go chalky during treatment. And
hmm
sometimes on the first night, that thing goes chalky. Nothing's changed yet. That one's gone chalky. If you told the patient, they're like, wow, this guy's amazing. He knows his stuff. If you didn't tell the patient, the teeth haven't changed. I've got this white spot now. The thing with bleaching is it's often the first thing we do in a
hmm
treatment plan. And so it's the first thing that kind of builds trust for the next bits that you're going to do.
Yeah.
And especially if you've suggested whitening to the patient rather than them asking you, which is
hmm
what, by the way, what we try and train all day today. I was talking to our regional centre up in Derbyshire, and I was saying, we need to talk to patients. But if you've brought it up in the first place,
hmm
and then and the first thing that happens is an issue that you haven't discussed, you go from this position of the guy's gone for something premium and trust to suddenly, am I doing the right thing?
hmm
Now, hopefully you pull it out of the bag, the teeth whiten, it's all good. But now let's say you do the next thing, you're doing some composite bonding. Yeah. If you had problems in the whitening, now the patient's really, really paying attention to the composite bonding.
Yeah. You're on the back
Whereas,
foot already.
yeah, you're already on the back foot, and you know this. You know this. It's a trust game, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Absolutely. I think we've got some Farsi coming in the comments. How you reading?
Salam, yeah. Hi, how are you? I read Farsi about as quick as you read Chinese.
I still only know about 7 words of Farsi, so you're going to do better than me. And I'm a long way off reading
Are you? Which words do you know? Are they all swear words?
No, just like nothing really. It goes in for a bit and rows around, and then it comes off. I can say
But
hi.
do you recognize it? Do you, when someone's walking in the street, do you recognize
Yeah,
that was Farsi?
yeah, yeah,
I'm the same with Arabic, but my wife's Lebanese.
Yeah, yeah. Fast language lessons aside. Oh, we've got some. Is that some Italian coming in as well now? This is a nightmare.
Ciao.
I'm going to have to get some. I'm going to have to get a linguist on for the next episode, aren't we? Sorry, cancel Stuart. So I think I wanted. Well, I was going to ask you later on about it because I knew you were up at the regional centre. What's the deal with the regional centres? Is that like a area exclusive thing, or is it? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So what we decided was, look, you know what? At one point, I realized that if you train the team, you can radically improve the performance of the practice. And when I say train, we've got the online training with clinical training, which takes an hour, but train the team on the marketing side. And we measured it a few times. The practices that did have it and the practices that didn't have it, and their performance going forward. And so we said, look, let's say who's going to be our key partner in each area, and talk to our big users in each area and say, do you want to be that key partner? And so they do buy a sort of a package of products. It's the lowest price we do, it's the best service we give, and all that. And then part of it is we come in and train them on how to sell the thing, sell that package, right, to patients. They come up first on the website as a regional centre. They get a different content pack. They get a bunch of extras, for being that regional centre. It's a bit like the Invisalign thing, but Invisalign's one is even fancier than ours in that they're sort of measuring your usage rate continuously.
I was going to say, are we getting some Enlighten Diamond Awards coming in the post soon? Or?
So ours has been more like, you said, look, who wants to be the regional centre? And some people jumped in quick. And I remember Daz, Daz Singh from Ollie and Dash in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And so I just come up with this notion, this idea, and it was a dental showcase, and we were going to roll it out. And my team would, anytime you're doing anything new, it seems weird, doesn't it? So they're like, look, what is it? And we don't understand and all this. And I said to him, look, it's really easy. Let me talk to one customer and I'll explain. And Daz came over and I said, but look, I really need your help right now. I've known him for a long time. I said, look, I've got my team all hyped up. No one believes they can do this. Why don't you be the regional centre?
Yeah.
And, we can get this thing going. And he looked at me, he picked up his phone, he called his practice manager, Susie. I don't know if you've come across, she's one of these high profile practice managers. And he said to her, how much are we spending on Enlighten every month? And she told him, and he turned around to me and said, look, if you give me the whole of Liverpool, I'll do it. And I just said, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was one of the biggest mistakes. I'm not going to call it a mistake because he did me a favour. Yeah. But since then, people in Liverpool have been asking to be regional centres.
Too much territory.
Yeah, I gave him the whole time. And Liverpool is the world's capital of whitening. I mean, it's always been our biggest town for whitening from the beginning.
We've just had a question pop up, actually. I'll see if I can get it to appear. There we go. About the white spots that you mentioned there. So should a patient be instructed to carry on when they notice white spots? And will it then eventually blend in? Yeah.
It's a good question because you think you're going to make things worse by carrying on. But, for me, once it starts going chalky, it's gone chalky. You're not going to make things much worse. But you do want to whiten the surrounding teeth to kind of camouflage. And then what tends to happen with Enlighten anyway, at the end of treatment, things tend to just settle down.
Yeah.
So if they don't, you've got other options, right? You've got microabrasion, you've got icon, which, by the way, I prefer in that order: microabrasion first, and then icon.
And then icon.
So I'm trying to read the Farsi.
Don't worry about it too much.
She's asking if I can speak Farsi. Bale. You can. Go ahead.
Offering. So let's move on to the thing that everyone's here for, and I know you've got some pictures, which is very exciting. How does your lab that only makes your trays want to find out about a patient's mouth? Is it an imp? Is it a scan? And if it is an imp, is it an alginate? Is it a silicone? Talk to me.
It's a brilliant question. So look, the real answer is that it's a good in. It would be the best thing for us today. Yeah.
Hmm.
We supply alginate with every kit. So a 5-day stable alginate, Hydrogun 5. Have you come across it?
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the smoothest and it's stable.
Hmm.
Yeah, for 5 days. So now we used to supply a silicon material, and silicon's absolutely fine. But what I was saying to you before, when you've got hundreds of trays coming in every day, you can see the trends. Yeah. And so if you're the kind of dentist that can deliver perfect silicon impression without any drags on the gingival margin, and we should all be able to do that. But what we found is more dentists can get that with alginate than with silicon. And for that reason, we now ask for alginate. We
Hmm.
do ask for metal perforated trays, and I'm not going to insist on perforated, but perforated seems to just retain the thing a bit better. I mean, some people
Hmm.
like Rimlock, yeah. But and we supply the metal perforated trays as well. Again, we get hundreds of impressions every day that aren't that material in that tray, but that's what we ask for. And like I say, if it's a good impression, we're going to go ahead and make it anyway. But if it's not, then we ask for a re-in. And our lab is a little bit strict on it,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, the patient's opted for Enlighten. He could have opted for one of many other cheaper, products. He's opted for Enlighten because he wants that result. And if the impression's wrong, and you know this, it compounds. Each error compounds on the. In your world, it would be the primary slightly short. Now the secondary, you can't quite get what you wanted out of it.
Hmm.
In our world, it's the distal of the seven. In your world, it's the tuberosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have a little training which we do where we show them what are the common mistakes. So should we go through it?
Go for it. Go for it.
The common mistakes are drags, number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And particularly in the anterior, um, that people tend to get more drags in the anterior than anywhere else for some reason. So we just try and put a bit of alginate on the finger, rub it into that area before making the impression. That's number one. Number two tends to be the distal, the seven in totality, right? So if you can get the distal of the seven in the impression, that acts as the heel of the tray, just like the tuberosity, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And obviously we're interested in both the upper and the lower. Yeah, you haven't got similar, but then if you can get an accurate impression of the distal of the seven, that has a disproportionate effect on stability.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
and again, it's something that we don't think about, but it's very obvious, right? So again, put a bit of alginate on your finger, rub it behind the last two, yeah, to get
As I
now.
say, it's not
Go
necessarily
ahead.
something you think about because your patient probably isn't going to
Proportion.
bleach their seven.
That's
So
right.
you think, oh, I
That's
don't
right.
need my tray to go that far back because it's not
That's
going
right.
to bleach it. But as you say, it's so important about actually fitting on and remaining stable. It's not even about, as you say, you try it in at the bleach delivery day and you go, yeah, it fits, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it still fitting 4 minutes later?
Exactly. And what you should do, just like a denture, you put the denture in. The first thing you're going to do is try and remove it, right?
Hmm.
And it's never loose at the front. We've got those long teeth, there's massive, retention form, if you like, at the front. But at the back, especially if you've got small molars, if you've got sort of molars that are turned in a little bit, then you've got the flapping back of the tray. And the flapping back of the tray just lets saliva in, and that saliva comes into the front anyway
Hmm.
and ruins the thing. The second problem we get with sevens is distortions. And that's probably even a bigger problem than this distal issue, because people use the wrong size tray, or the back's the hardest area to not get a distortion, right? And so we get a seven that's kind of bent, and it's the wrong shape, and it's such a problem that we're considering not going to the seven anymore and stopping at the six, because that's turning out to be a good idea.
Mm. Do
Shall I
you, yeah, go
turn
for
my
it.
camera? Actually?
Yeah. Do you notice more distortion with plastic trays versus metal? or is that more about just coming out?
Yeah, no, we do because the extension of the plastic tray isn't there, and so it's just unsupported
Hmm.
material. Whereas the metal tray it's just a longer. The sulcus depth is more, and so you can get if you use the right tray. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's a bit longer as well, and so the material's got support, and that's the key, isn't it?
Hmm.
Having the support.
Yeah.
Let me turn this around.
There we go.
Mm. And then the final problem is that sometimes the dentist, when he takes the impression out, will grab the handle and he'll rock it up and down. And if he does that before the material is set properly, it causes a space between the tray and the tooth in the anterior area.
Hmm.
So again, we train them not to do it, fully set. And we were talking about this before, Rupert, that much of dentistry is about getting the basics absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no huge magic thing you're doing when you're getting that suction on that lower denture. You're just getting the basics absolutely right. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so letting the material set is one of those. Let me flip this. So
No. Oh, I thought we lost you.
I can't see me. Can you see me?
I can see you now. There you
My
go.
face
No,
or
just
my
got the
screen?
screen. Screen.
That's weird. I can't see the screen anymore.
There you go.
Okay, I've got it now. I've got it now.
There we
So
go.
so we said about. Oh, we can zoom as well. Cool.
Oh,
So
hey.
not getting any drags, particularly on that buckle.
Hmm.
Not getting this drag that you can see here on the distal of the seven. Not always possible, by the way, right? Because
Hmm.
sometimes it's partially erupted or whatever. And then finally, not rocking the thing when you're taking it out, yeah, and letting the material fully set. Basics, very very basic. Then with Hydrogum 5, I don't know if you're aware, right? You're not supposed to wrap it in wet
Hmm.
tissues either, because it tends to absorb water, and then that actually makes it expand rather than. So
Hmm.
you put a wet tissue in there, but don't wrap the impression itself with wet tissue.
Yeah. It's just moisture within a sealed environment, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly. And then we come to this question of impression or scan, right? And people worry about it. I mean, people think we're being silly about this. Yeah. It's funny because we have to get scans right eventually. There's no doubt about it. We have to get an understanding of how to get it absolutely right on a scan. And you see, look, we do. This is what we do. We get the same mouth and make
Hmm.
trays, same tray, both on a scan and on an impression, a printed model and a stone model. And you can see, obviously, the scanned model doesn't have all the blebs and those little bits and pieces that you have to sort of remove on a stone model. Yeah. So in theory, if you were just thinking mechanically, then you might think the printed model is better than the stone model. But it turns out that, and we'll talk about what we're trying to do to get over this problem. The biggest problem is the printed models. Most of all of the resins we've so far come across are not gas permeable, and so the gas permeability of the model is a big factor in getting a really tight fitting tray, whereas the stone model is gas permeable. And so there are workarounds to that. We're trying lots and lots of things. We've had some success as well, but the problem then ends up being, well, if we do this workaround on all our trays, it's taking twice as long to
Hmm.
make them. We either need twice the number of technicians or we need to double the length of time it's going to take to get something back. And so it's that sort of, problem. That's what I'm saying to you about I come to respect labs a
Hmm.
lot more. Because when your lab says, oh, it'll be back in a week, you think, well, why do they need a week? But when you consider hundreds coming in every day, it really changes the game. So, okay, let's look at impressions. And I asked them for problem ones, right? And they sort of gave me the very worst. Yeah.
So these
So
are fresh off the bench.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't need to even explain what's wrong with that
Mm.
impression. Um, you know, this, uh, and technicians must be getting all sorts of rubbish in as well. Yeah, it, it's problematic. Yeah, because sometimes you call this dentist and say we need a new impression, and he gets pissed off.
Hmm.
He says go ahead and make it anyway, yeah, and which is fine. Yeah, but he gets pissed off about it. um, and I've got some models for you. So you need the gingival margin, right?
Hmm.
You can't have that. Even on the lingual side, you can't. Um, Problems like this, you need a good gingival margin, sharp gingival margin, not these sort of holes. What are these holes? Um, Problems like assumed it. This look, these the seven cut off
Hmm.
there. Yeah, that makes a massive difference. Yeah, that's not a broken tooth. That's a bad impression.
So when you said you're looking at like not extending to sevens anymore, is that
Yeah.
obviously ideally you'd want to, but are you saying that it's more you get more distort or more likely and than not you're getting distortion and therefore you're
Yeah,
probably on average better if you just discount the sevens entirely?
we're getting a lot of distortions, and also the sort of the fulcrum effect. Yeah, the shorter tray doesn't want to bounce as much, and
Hmm.
people worry about the occlusion. What's going to happen over eruption or whatever. But it's only nighttime wear for 2 weeks, so it's not a problem. By the way, I was worried about that myself. So when I asked a bunch of people about it, nighttime wear over 2 weeks not going to change it, or even 4 or 6 weeks. If it's nighttime wear,
Hmm.
not going to change the occlusion. Look at this. See the gingival margin there? We,
Hmm.
we need a gingival margin to make a really good lesion. And then there's, just proper issues. So then let's move to scans. And so I would put the scan problems into three main problems. One is about the seven. Yeah, so that's missing there. Again,
It's,
difficult.
it's
It's
not
not
it's not an easy place to scan.
it's
Distal of
not
a
an easy
seven,
place to
getting
scan.
that
No.
angle back.
Yeah, exactly. Then sort of surface issues like this and this. Not sure what causes it, dude, because by the time scanners came around, I wasn't a dentist anymore. So I'm not, maybe you know better than me what's causing that.
Do you
And
know? Do you notice
this,
any issues with brand of scanner?
no, I haven't, to tell you the truth, I haven't looked into it, I should. But I guess which is the one with the smallest head would be the one you'd want to go for, right?
Mm.
And then sometimes you get this sort of stitching issue, like overlap issue, like this and this. It's almost like it's a processing error rather than a scanning error.
Let's put it all
Um,
together.
yeah, same thing here. It's something going on. It's like double scanning or whatever. It's just not stitching it correct. So we get, by the way, I'm making out it's a big problem. It's a big problem because it's such a huge volume. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when it's a huge volume, then it's always going to be a problem for you. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the the issues part.
So you're not too fussed as long as, or your technicians aren't, as long as actually it's a good whatever it is, but you
Yeah.
still feel impressions better than scans at this time.
For for now, look, we're working on it. Like we've come to our fifth idea on how to make it better. By the way, it's like I say, some of them have made things better, but they've been impractical
Hmm.
to put in place. And the way we've always worked with Enlighten is we said that even if it's impractical, we've got to do it. Yeah, because that's all we have. All we have is the quality of the system.
Hmm.
We certainly don't have price, right? We
Yeah.
can't come in and say we're the cheapest. Yeah, um, you know, being the best looking or whatever. There's no longevity in that.
Hmm.
It's got to give the best results. And so, you know, will we go down one of those routes? That means I'm going to have to hire double the number of technicians. If it's right, I will. And by the way, what's happened with the volume of scans? A year ago, we were getting by percentage maybe 1/6 the scans.
Hmm.
Just 1 year later, it's 1/3
Yeah.
a scan. So 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 it's one of those.
Well, it's probably, and you sort of mentioned it earlier where you said, well, you've got, you know, people doing it as part of their bigger plans, their Invisaligns, or and
Yeah,
if you're doing an Invisalign, you've already done an iTero, so
yeah. Get it.
you're going to send the scan, aren't you? So it's going to form part of it. So I scan everything else, but I still imp for whitening, for Enlighten with
And
hydrogen
for, and for full dentures as well,
and for full dentures. Yeah. But I haven't yet made some Enlighten trays for a full denture, but maybe one day. That can be our next thing. That's what our next topic will be about. We'll work out how to do that. We'll be onto something there.
I mean, it's funny, dude, because once you get used to not going to the post office, it's horrible to have to go to the post office. Yeah, I think it's like that. Oh,
Hmm.
I see we've got Kunal on the line. You're a massive fan of scanning.
Love teeth, yeah.
It's one of those. It's one of those, you know. But I don't know. For now, we're making better trays on impressions on stone model
Hmm.
than on printed one. If we can make those changes and we can implement the changes around, you know, some of them include digitally making the thing more porous.
Hmm.
So incorporating holes into the digital thing. It's making the printing time much longer, the design time much longer. You
Yeah.
know, we've played with a bunch of different things. So making the whole thing smaller by a couple of percent. So you know, it's one of those.
Yeah.
Got to find the answer.
Yeah. Um, so I think Rob, you sort of touched on it with your regional centres. Let's go on a little bit about communication tips. And again, doesn't have to be about Enlighten necessarily, but whitening in general, you know, what sort of tips have you got for people that want to do more whitening? I think the main thing
Yeah,
is talk about it, right?
yeah, yeah. No doubt about that.
Done, finished.
Yeah, but why is it? Why is it some dentists are very comfortable talking about it and others are really uncomfortable? Is the key question. Like if I can answer that question, it will change the natural history of the company, right? Because it's so much easier for us to get the same dentist to do twice as many whitenings than to try and find twice the number of dentists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so important. So I don't know. I've broken it down into I don't want to embarrass the patient.
Hmm.
I don't want to annoy the patient. I don't want to come across as a pushy salesman.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend the patient. Yeah, these are the sort of areas, the reasons why I don't have time. It's another classic, right? So people in NHS don't have time
Hmm.
to do anything, right? Um, I, I don't think the patient can afford it, which
Yeah.
is just massive error thinking that.
Especially at the moment, the Zoom boom. Have you noticed sales going up since end of lockdown?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's because people are looking at themselves on Zoom. I think it's more to do with the money in their pockets from the
I think
furlough.
they're both factors, 100%. June, July, everyone coming in. Oh my God, I've been looking at my face for 3 months. Because you don't in a normal meeting, right? You don't sit and look at this and
Yeah,
you're looking at everyone else and you can't see
true.
yourself. But yeah,
It's
I
true.
wouldn't be
It's true.
surprised.
There's also the issue of, you know, there was a bunch of patients who were going to NHS practices who
Hmm.
could afford to be seen privately. But while the NHS was there, they would just go to NHS practices. Now that the NHS can't see so many patients, the ones who can afford it are thinking, well, now's the time to go private.
Yeah.
And as soon as people start going private, Enlighten does well. You know, it's one of those.
Hmm. No, I think and I'm definitely in the camp where I'm much more happy talking about whitening when all of a sudden there's a couple of veneers or some composites to do.
Yeah. So
That's straight.
that's
That's
the
straight
easiest.
away in the treatment plan. Straight away. If you've ever thought about doing it, do it now because this is the best time to do.
Yeah, and
That's the easy
there's
time, right?
almost like a you have to ask,
Yeah.
right? Because if you don't ask, what if he did want it, and now he's got to replace those veneers, right? That goes without saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime you're doing something at the front, you have to ask, definitely. Then, what about if you're doing something at the back? Yeah.
Hmm.
Should you ask that?
Hmm.
And the way I see that, it's like I take my car for service, brakes need changing. That's the on lane at the back. Yeah. Do you want to valet the car while it's in? Sure. Yeah. It's not your mouth doesn't work that way. It's not like your mouth is in, right? But do you want to whiten your teeth while you're looking at your teeth? While you're looking at your smile. The
Hmm.
reality is, dude, yeah, that I do apologize for this fact. I think it's a fact, right? That I'd say our patients are more interested in the color of their teeth than everything else you talk about put together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so big. And so when we talk to finance people, we talk to banks about our expansion plans or whatever, yeah, and they ask this question: number of treatments per dentist per day. Yeah, when you break it to them that per dentist per day is too many,
Hmm.
they can't, like, normal humans can't believe that dentists aren't doing whitening all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah, because everyone understands it's so important to everyone. Yeah, they think dentists are doing 3, 4, 6 a day. When you tell them, oh, most dentists are doing one a month,
Yeah.
it it's I'd say two a month. If I don't know if you divide all the number, but one or two a month is kind of the average. They can't believe it.
Hmm.
Yeah, like the thing that patients are most interested in, we're doing so little. And the real reason for it is that the vast majority of our patients will follow us to wherever the patient journey takes them. Yeah. So if your patient journey goes to shade, the patient will follow you to shade. And then we know most patients will want to white a smile. So then that's when you'll do whitening. If your patient journey doesn't take you to shade, most patients won't bring it up because they're at the doctor. Yeah, that a lot of people think of it that way.
Hmm.
Um, they've got enough to worry about. Yeah, with, is this going to cost too much? Is this going to hurt? Am I going to be okay? All of that stuff. To now say, oh, I'd like my teeth whitened. Yeah,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
the the and so it's a double problem of patients don't say I would like, and dentists don't say would you like.
Yeah. I think
So we end up with where.
well, we've switched since coming back from lockdown. We switched over to the portal for the pre-forms and all that kind of stuff. And for
Yeah.
our new patients, I think it's just for our new patients at the moment. We've got like a tick box. Prav is very, very Prav's thing, obviously, because Prav does our stuff, but very Prav's thing of, smile wish list and all that. And it's got all these boxes you can tick. And the two most common ones are whiter teeth and younger skin. Yeah, and they tick that box, and then you've got a free pass to talk about it, haven't you? As soon as
Yeah,
that,
of
yeah, they
course.
tick that box. It's the same as you're a big advocate of the reception saying, here's the shade tab. This is what we're doing this week. Da, 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 da. You've got that free pass to bring it up.
Yeah, but if people follow that plan, and for your audience, I'll explain it. The idea is the receptionist gets permission to talk for the shade taking
Hmm.
during the appointment, and the way the dentist realizes that this patient's given permission is this piece of paper that the receptionist gives to the patient, and that piece of paper pretty much sells whitening, also sells the practice as a center of excellence for minimally invasive dentistry, and we've got the latest equipment, we care, and all of that. You put whatever you want on that piece of paper, right? But the nice thing is, patient walks in with the piece of paper. Now, if you don't talk about shade, you've got a situation because they're expecting a conversation about shade. And when we do that, today we were going to 80% of patients say yes, I want to have the shade taken on my teeth. So
Hmm.
it's now, do they all go ahead or not? No, of course not. Of course not. But you want to measure how good your whitening service is. Yeah. The way to measure it is once you've gotten over all of these problems and you've talked to lots of patients about it, when they're saying no, how are they feeling? when they're saying no? Are they feeling, screw these guys, are always pushing their crap on me, I hate them anyway? Is that no? Is it one of those no's,
Hmm.
or is it, God, I'm really lucky I'm treated in a place like this, where latest equipment, lovely people, but I can't afford it.
Hmm.
Yeah, is that the no? Yeah, because you're going to hear a lot of no's. Yeah, if you talk to every single patient, and if the no's are the first type, it's soul destroying, and it's horrible, and you're not going to ask lots of patients. If the no is the second type, it's education. Yeah, you educated your patient on their biggest concern. You did your bit. You're great. You're lovely. You got the latest technology. You know how to make teeth right. Yeah. Um, then you keep on asking lots of people about
And you see in those excellent centers of excellence or wherever they're doing, you see it going up
Oh yeah, yeah,
dramatically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Got Love Teeth, which I can still see down here. Kunal, I mean, he's one of those guys who sort of executes. Like if you tell him do this, he'll do it. You know, tomorrow. He'll do
Hmm.
it better than you told him to do it. And by the way, most people don't do that, right? But Kunal, he went from they were doing I don't know 4 or 5 whitenings a year to now I think they're on 25 a month. I mean, by making that change, you know.
Platinum member.
Yeah, yeah. Double, triple platinum.
What are
And
your
also,
thoughts
also, by the
on
way, also
offers?
he was mixed practice at the time when
Hmm.
that happened. Offers, yeah. The
Do
thing
you go,
about
do you look at it
offers,
more from the like it's a luxury thing, so you shouldn't?
what it is, Didier, is that some people they need an offer to have some reason for bringing it up,
Hmm.
and it's almost like I don't want to offend you, I don't want to embarrass you, I don't want to, all those reasons. But the reason I'm saying it is because there's an offer.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's some they hang the conversation on an offer, which is a fine, you know. As long as there's a conversation, we're good. But we've done the experiment. If you value add, it works better than if you money off.
Hmm.
Yeah. So especially with something premium like Enlighten, you know, you take £100 off Enlighten, you don't sell more Enlighten than if you throw in something. And without,
Hmm.
should we say, throw in the first year's top up for free. Um, the other thing is, you know, price sensitivity isn't linear. You know, the people, you know, we're scientists, right? So we think at £500, I will do 20 whitenings. At £400, I will do 30 whitenings. And, you know, like, it's
Hmm.
just a supply demand linear thing. It's not the case. Yeah. Sometimes it's the opposite. When you put your price up, you do more.
Hmm.
Um, and understanding that fact is really important too. But yeah, Enlighten's an expensive product, so you don't want to bring your price down too much.
So if someone wanted to go out tomorrow and do more whitening, what do you think is
Yeah,
the most important thing for them to do?
talk to patients. Um, Remember this, you know, in your nice leafy practices, yeah, patients who need nothing are the majority of patients. Those guys are amazing,
Mm.
amazing for. Hey Georgia, how are you? Those guys are amazing for whitening because you know the reason they're brushing their teeth is to keep their teeth white, not to make their gums pink. You know that's
Hmm.
and they love hearing it from the dentist or hygienist. You know, you're brilliant, brushing your teeth, well done. You need nothing because you're brilliant. What about what about whitening? What about something you might want? It's almost like it's a nice way of bringing it. When I was a dentist, that was the one the conversation I was having the most to do whitening. You know, sometimes it was the class 500, you know, to make it easier. But that was the most common way I was doing whitening because I was in this very, very sort of well maintained practice. Um, Brilliant hygienists, you know, just a nice part of town. People didn't need anything. And I was saying that, and I was doing loads and loads of it. Like,
Hmm. So maybe it's even empowering your hygienists because maybe even they
what,
in those sometimes those maybe those really well maintained patients they might only be seeing me once a year but seeing the hygienist twice a year as well.
yeah,
So it's potentially it's empowering the hygienist to
the
have
hygienist is
that
super
conversation.
important,
Mm.
super important, because a lot of people think scale and polish is some sort of whitening treatment. number one. A lot of people are closer to their hygienist than they are to their dentist. Not only because sometimes the hygienist is easier to talk to, and we have to face it. Sometimes that's the case. Yeah, that me and you both know a bunch of like charming colleagues. Yeah, but there's plenty of not charming dentists around as well. Sometimes the hygienist is just an easier person to talk to. But also the key point for me, that the patients spend generally an hour with the hygienist every year, like 2 30-minute skin and polishes. They don't necessarily spend an hour with the dentist in a lot of practices. And so, there's just more face time with the hygienist. Sometimes the hygienist recommendations or seems like there's nothing in it for her. So that seems to work out, although it makes a lot of sense to have something in it for her.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we understand associates work on this percentage thing, but hygienists are supposed to just work on this hourly rate, and they're going to push white. Why?
It doesn't add up. Yeah, it doesn't add up.
Yeah, it just doesn't add up. So yeah, hygiene is really important. Hygienists can quadruple the whitening in a practice very, very easily by just talking about it with every patient.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Any other bits that you want to chuck in there? Any key points?
No, I think I'm done, man. I think I'm done. Those are the key things. I mean, okay, we're not going to outdo the 1 hour of the of the live.
No. I'll keep an eye on it. Don't worry.
I think I'm done. Take a really good impression. The one other thing that people ignore sometimes is sensitivity management. Yeah, and they say, oh, my patients don't comply. Yeah, like as if your patients are somehow different to everyone else's patients. Your patients don't comply because you're hurting them. Yeah. There's not many people in the world, right? Well, there's a few, but not many, going to pay you hundreds of pounds and not have a go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's loads who pay you hundreds of pounds, have a go, and it's excruciating. Stop using it. That's normal human behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
This idea of compliance being a patient problem. Compliance is a sensitivity system dentist related issue. If you can manage sensitivity, you'll get loads and loads and loads of compliance. And think of it from the Enlighten perspective, dude. Yeah? We're doing hundreds of treatments every day. Yeah. Imagine we had a 10% compliance issue. Yeah. It would destroy us, right? Because we're guaranteeing every single treatment. Yeah. It would be a massive situation and we've done nothing wrong. Dentist has done nothing wrong. The product's excellent. Everything's perfect. The patient's just not using it. That's not real life.
Yeah.
That's not how stuff works. So yeah, manage sensitivity, and we do that with toothpaste, with desensitizers. Using the right gel makes a big difference on the one that hasn't got acidic.
Yeah, it's all the system, and that, to be honest, that's actually more what I find, because we have boutique as well.
Yeah.
But I do such a disproportionate amount more of Enlighten, because as soon as I say that, because people have heard from their friends that, one, that it damages your enamel, or two, that it was really, really sensitive, and that's why, because it damaged your enamel. So as soon as you say, well, this one is much, much better at managing sensitivity for X, Y, and Z, it's about how it's transported and how it's stored and the reducive acid and da-da-da-da-da. And you go, yeah, sweet, let's go for that. Even though it's, whatever it is, 30-40% more.
Yeah.
So I think the sense of it and understanding that side of it is really, really important. But I know it's all covered in your training stuff.
Another mistake people make is they give 3 choices. I don't think 3 choices make sense in any area of dentistry. Yeah. Unless you specifically want people to go for choice number 2.
For the middle one, yeah.
For the middle one. Yeah. But 3 choices, it's confusing. It's particularly confusing for the dentist, right? Because look, you just said those 2 things. Yeah. What are you going to say about your middle choice, your white dental beauty? Yeah, well, it's a bit less sensitive, not quite as good results. Yeah, it's such a difficult sell, right? Whereas people understand cheap and expensive, people understand standard and advanced or whatever. I see Dr. Yazida makes a brilliant point about making the impression, not taking it.
He's listened. Yeah. He listened to plenty of these lives. That's why.
It's so very, very, very true, isn't it? It's so very true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But you know, a bit of care, man, a bit of care. Like I was never a super duper dentist. That wasn't, you know, you are, yeah. You can see 4 years out. Look what you're doing. Yeah? But a bit of care, man. Make a
Mhm.
really good impression.
Mhm.
Makes all the difference in whitening,
Yeah, I think
just like it does a
it's just
dentist.
switching that mindset. It's switching that mindset of just that, oh, I'm going to bung it in. We're going to make some trays. Great. Because as you say, if you're not going to get those results that you want, patient wants, if you're not doing it, and then you end up
Exactly.
with with an angry patient, and if it's the foundation of a big figure case, then you don't want that. That perfect. Right, I've got one last question for you. It's not as bad as Prav's one. Um, hope you haven't been thinking about it all day like I did on Sunday. Um, it's just one simple thing. It doesn't have to be clinical. If you had one thing that you do now or you know now, so it doesn't have to be about whitening either, but for younger dentists to say, like myself, 4 years out, what would that top tip be? Clinical, life, business, whatever.
I'm going a bit dark. Alexa, turn on the lights. It's my it's my son's room. um, so look, I would say when I was a dentist, the mistake I made the most that it just didn't occur to me. Yeah, was when I was going for a job, it didn't occur to me to apply to a job that wasn't being advertised.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it didn't. It just I never thought it was a thing to contact a practice and say I want to work for you. If I'd figured that out, I would have been contacting much bigger, better practices than the ones. By the way, I worked in good ones here, but I was literally back then it was the BDJ. I was going in the BDJ and saying like, there's a job there, job there, job there, apply. And then I talked to super successful dentists here, and without doubt, all of them say, yeah, you know, I just contacted every practice in town, or I contacted all my favorite practices, and
Mhm.
said, I want to one day work for you. And I just think that's such a great tip. It just never occurred to me to do.
Yeah,
So,
I think
as
it's massive, massive.
did you do that? Did you do that, or did you? Well, actually,
Um,
you met them on that course.
yeah, I met my boss at a conference, but
Yeah,
no,
but you know that itself, that's yeah, another way of getting a job than looking at a job offer. You know.
yeah, it's what I say to it's what I say to people ask me, and I'm just like, yeah, because when I started mine, I did my other Saturday that I wasn't working in my NHS practice. I did at this practice. So, you know, I say, you know, it's half a Saturday. Yeah, it might be your only Saturday, but you know, people, particularly if you want to do private practice, they all want things on Saturdays, and your typical mid 40s private associate has got his kids
Doesn't
and
want to work.
and doesn't want to work. So more than happy
Absolutely.
to do it. So absolutely, I've said it to countless people. Look around and pick, you know, your favorite five, as you say, in your area with the people that you want to work for, and just go and drop a letter. Because what they're going to say, no.
The other thing I would say is, back in my day, it was I bought an intraoral camera. Yeah, but I bought it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'd spent my life saying, "Oh, my boss isn't getting it for me," and blah, 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 my boss wasn't about to buy me an indoor camera. But back in my day, that was like a scanner or something. Yeah, it was a
Mm-hmm.
expensive piece of equipment you didn't need. Yeah, but that indoor camera changed the way I practice. Yeah, and you know, go ahead and get it for yourself and understand. Yeah, and I get it. My wife's an associate for a corporate. Yeah, and so I get the bitterness of you're as an associate, you're getting eroded and eroded, and it feels like you're just getting eroded every year. You're getting eroded a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're asking you to buy the damn materials. I get it, I do get it, but see your associate years as education years. You know, and don't see your associate years as money earning years.
Mm-hmm.
Earn money, yeah, but see them as education years. And if that, you know, people pay tens of thousands of pounds for education. They can go on Spear and Coyce and MSCs and all of that, and yet they won't buy a box of composite because. But I get it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because there's bitterness sometimes in that relationship when it comes to the numbers.
Yeah.
But if I was going to be a successful associate, I'd buy that stuff and play with it. Yeah,
Yeah. I think you see it more now. We're coming up to
yeah,
the hour. We're going to get kicked off. Cheers so much for coming on. And
brilliant, man.
I'm sure I'll see you around the corner at some point.
Yeah. This time we'll go for a coffee.
Yeah, a little quiet one. Cheers, mate. Have
Thanks
a
a
good
lot for
evening.
having me on, man. Flew by.
No
Thanks.
worries.
Take care.